Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to give a few minutes. We have about 2 minutes before, well, 1 minute now before participants start to join us. But real quick, I want to ensure that you receive credit for this webinar this afternoon. So please, please, please put your name, your program in the chat box because once the webinar has ended, I will be able to go and check the role as I facilitate, present today. I'm not able to take the role currently. Also, I would like for everyone to, come with an open mind, engage when there is time for engagement, and always just have a positive attitude with career development. We're not offering a lot of career development trainings. I have listened to you guys. You want virtual, so here we are. Um, we are virtual. This makes our second career coach connection. And so I will be with you for an hour today. So please, please, please put your name in the chat so I can give you credit. And if you did not register, please stay on. I can always have Miss Wendy Bryant to add your name and give you credit and just put your name in the chat box. So Luana wasn't able to join us today, so I had to switch gears. And I think resume writing is a topic that we all can use as career coaches and career service providers and SNAP ENT, as well as teachers, directors, because our goal is to really assist our adult learners into enter into the workforce. Everything that we do will require us to ensure that we have a great product coming from our adult education program that is entering into the workforce. So today I'm just going to share with you some basic foundations, skills, and strategies that you are able to utilize when you are crafting a resume for your adult learner. If you have ever taken the resume training that or the career service provider course, then you know that we go into detail actually drafting a resume based on the case scenario. We create a blank resume based on the case scenario. So, but for the purpose of this webinar, I'm just going to give you the foundational skills, the current resume trends, the things that needs to be included in your resume, and ensuring that you as career service providers are tailoring your adult learners, or even if you're revamping your resume to the job description. So just want to ask the question, you can put it in the chat. What is your biggest challenge with resumes? Knowing what to include, formatting it professionally, highlighting achievements, not just duties, or tailoring for each job description. No work experience. Okay. So one of the things that I would suggest is if a student doesn't have work experience, we created two-wage resume templates, which is the functional resume template. And so although a student may not have work experience, you can include that, when they go through wage, that is considered skills because they have to look for information, they have to learn technology skills, that have to understand a budget. So those are some things that you can utilize for your student who may not have never worked, or you can consider what have they done, around the house. Do they clean up? Are they a caregiver? Do they babysit? So those are some things that you can kind of look into it and just really having a conversation with the student to get those out. But also maybe you can give that student some experience around your adult education program. Maybe you have them to, make copies for you, or maybe, do light duty things, maybe job shadow you as you be the have them to be like the teacher assistant or a career coach assistant, where they kind of, getting that understanding of what it feels like to be working, and maybe having them to say, hey, can you come to work the same time I come to work? That shows time management skills. And so things like that. And so it's very important that we try to get them those different skills to include on their resume, but them navigating a online learning management system is also skills that someone will have to use as well. So why does a resume matter? A resume matter in 2025 is because as career coaches, CSPs, it is important for us to help our students to understand that a resume is a formal document of highlighting their skill sets, their qualifications, their achievements. It's basically them bragging on themselves, but on paper. And I want you to kind of think of our students as the a brochure promoting a product of adult education, because our student is our product in adult education. And so when they leave our adult education centers, they have a professional resume, and they also leave with skills through our wage level one, and as well as wage level two, because they go into a different career path. And so it also shows that the individual we prepared is well equipped to enter into the workforce. And so a resume makes a strong first impression for an employer. Even before they meet the employee in person, it allows them to showcase that they are well organized based on their resume. It allows them to show their skills. And then, as the saying goes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Now, a lot of career coaches emailed and request this resume webinar. And I will tell you, some of the resumes that we see that come through the WAVE scholarships, they are not acceptable. And sometimes Ms. LaWanna, may send them back, or it may be a delay because we are not pleased, with the resumes. And so, we ask, it's not required that you use the WAVE resume templates, but it is a starting point, because think about it. You wouldn't want to send your resume out with just nothing. If you're not really sure about where to start, Google is your best friend. You have ChatGPT. There's a lot of different tools that you can use to be able to assist your students to crafting a well-crafted resume. So we want to ensure that we make that first impression. And then we also have to explain to students that employers use your resume as a screening tool. They use it as a screening tool because they want to see if our student is qualified or have the skill set to come in for an interview. And so the ultimate goal of the resume is really to get the student the interview. I want you to think about it like this. The student resume gets the student the interview. The student interview skills gets them the job. So it's important to have a well-crafted resume, and do not just send out any type of resume, because you wouldn't do that, for your resume, especially if you're applying for a dream job. You're going to actually take the time. And I know sometimes our students, they come and go. So maybe you can break it up in sections. Well, say, hey, this week we're going to focus on the header section. When you come back, we'll do your work experience. So, we don't want to rush that. We don't want to rush the process with our students. And then you also should be working together with your students. It's a collaborative effort. It's not that you have to do every single resume. No. When I was out in the field career coaching, I will put students, I go into teacher mode. We'll have a session. We'll talk about what a resume is. And then I put them on a computer with those templates and have them to plug in their information. But also, before you do that, you have them to create a resume builder. Have them to complete their resume builder. So during the time of the resume writing, they do not have to go searching for different things. They already have it there. So that's important. So some of the current resume trends for 2025. What is a resume in 2025? It's different from when we created our resume. Back in the day, we could use that same resume for every job that we applied for. things have changed. We are in the 21st century. And so now is a competitive workforce because our resumes now employers, when COVID hit, they're looking for more job specific and skill focused resumes, meaning that you are tailoring that resume specifically to the job that the student is applying for. Meaning, if a student, for an example, if a student is applying for a customer service role, one of those keywords should focus on customer service. Their resume should reflect their experience in customer service. So, for an example, you have a student is applying for a cashier position, but they want to go into, let's just say, work at Walmart. They leave in Subway and want to work at Walmart. Well, they have a lot of transferable skills because they have to greet customers, they have to handle conflict resolutions. So those type of words, and it needs to be tailored to that student according to the job that the student applying for. Now, one of the things that I like to do is, although we know that our students have a variety of different skills in that work section or professional experience, I like to put, instead of those two things, I like to put relevant work experience, and I'll highlight that first, and then under another section, I will put professional experience or work experience to showcase that I have those that have that experience, but I also have other experience too as well. Also, you want to keep in mind that the resumes needs to be applicant tracking system friendly, meaning that you do not want to have a resume that has a lot of text boxes, because once a student upload their resume, anytime you or a student uploads a resume, it is going through an applicant tracking system. Every employer is using applicant tracking system. What does this system does? It actually scans for keywords. They cannot scan for keywords if you have text boxes or your picture on your resume. None of that's supposed to be on your resume because you run into age discrimination unless you are applying for a graphic design job and they want you to include your picture. But you want to ensure that you use a Word document, which is why we created those wage resume templates to allow you to, because it is ATS friendly. And then one key thing that I would like to put here is that you want to ensure that when you look at the job description, add at least 4 to 5 keywords from that job description. And if you ever taken my resume class, I have a lot of resources that you can scan. You can scan the job description to see the most common keywords. Then you want to highlight transferable skills. You want to highlight the student transferable skills. That is a must. So for an example, most of us are teachers, or some of us are teachers. And so if you as a teacher decide to transfer to a customer service role, organization skills, time management, planning, all those skills will transfer over to that new role. And so these are some current trends. And then the last thing I want to touch on this is you want to ensure that students are aware of the inclusion of AI and have digital skills. If you know that a student is not really familiar or computer savvy, it doesn't take 15 minutes to put them on the computer and have them to send an email just to get comfortable with utilizing technology. 15 minutes to put them on, have them to create a ChatGPT account and just play along with it, just figuring things out. Because we want to equip our students with the necessary tools needed to succeed and compete in the 21st century workforce. And then you have the continuous learning and certifications. We always want to push those certifications of wage and different things. We want to reflect that upon the student resume that's applicable to the job that they're applying for. And then the student online presence. Have them to clean up their social media. Have them to get on LinkedIn, because most employers post their positions on LinkedIn or in Facebook. So you want to ensure that they have a clean online presence. So these are some of the current trends for resume for 2025. So let's talk about it. How to write a resume. So this is how you write a resume. You start out with the format and layout. the header section, and then the resume sections. So one of the first things you have to determine is you have to determine what type of resume format that you need. If you are working with a student that is reentry, we would not use a chronological resume. Why? Because it would show their gaps of employment. So a chronological resume, what it does is work history listed by the date and is in reverse chronological order. And there is no gaps of employment. So you want to use that. When to use that? When to use this type of particular resume? After 1 year of continuous work in the same field. If a student has been with their employer, or even us, if we've been in our employer in the same field or, continuously, then this is when you would use a chronological resume. Why? Because it shows stability, reliability, and it shows career progression. It is best for adult learners staying in the same industry. So if they are going to customer service, as you can see, they may, even though on this resume, the student started off as a cashier at Dollar General, but she went into a home health aide. Those are transferable skills because she still has to know how to talk to patients, have great customer service skills, time management skills, and those things. So this particular resume is really based on reverse chronological order. The second layout is the functional resume, which is a skills-based resume. This focuses on accomplishments instead of work dates. So this is the type of resume that you will utilize for someone who has limited work experience, who has been recently released from prison, or who just who is changing careers, and someone who wants to show off their skills, even though they may not be in that current role, but the current role that they currently have, they have the skill sets to apply for that job. And so when to use this? 6 months, between 6 months and 3 years with gaps or changing careers. And so with this particular resume is organized by skill clusters. As you can see, if you have the wage resume templates, you can see that we have organized this particular resume by skill clusters based on the 4 components of wage. Career exploration, that translates into organization and planning. Customer service and professionalism, that translates to employability training. Computer training, that translates to digital literacy. Personal finance and money, that translates to financial literacy. So we have listed the 4 components of wage if a student does not have work experience. They have gone through the wage program. This could be their resume. One thing I do want to point out is you want to ensure that you change up the verbiage. Make this resume applicable to the student. We do not want to have all the functional resumes and you only change the name John Doe to Susan Q and it has the same verbiage, because then the employer is going to say, well, I saw that resume another time. So you want to ensure that you change it up. And yes, I did see, although I'm not able to check the chat, yes, you can include your LinkedIn, you can include your LinkedIn link on your resume if the student has an account. Yes, you can. That's a good point out. The last type of resume is combination resume, which is hybrid. So this type of resume blends skills and work experiences, emphasizing on both. So you use this 3+ years of relevant skills and experience. I like to use this combination hybrid resume because I like to showcase my area of expertise and transferable skills. As you can see on the screen, it's probably hard to see, but I also like to list my professional experience. So the resume that you see on the screen is an actual resume that I did for someone who was recently released from prison, and their employer wanted the dates, although they knew that they were recently released from prison. So I focus on the areas of expertise and transferable skills and they were applying to a warehouse position. So inventory management is a skill, warehouse operations, customer service, and team collaboration, and adaptability and resilience. And as you can see, I have the professional experience at the bottom that to include the dates. And so this helps because it also showcases, although they may have gaps of employment, but they also have the skills that the employers are looking for. So you have to know what type of resume to use for each student. We cannot use the same resume for every student. It's not a cookie cutter plan. Every student is different in our adult ed centers. So that's the first thing you have to do. You have to know how to choose the layout. So after you figure out the layout, you want to start drafting your resume. You want to ensure that you at least keep your resume to 1 to 2 pages. This is something that I like to do. I like to add my name to the bottom of the page if I have 2 pages. You also will want to left align everything because people read from left to right. You want to have clear margins, 1 inch all around, which is recommended. Then you want to use different fonts. You want to use fonts that are that people can read. You don't want to use all fancy fonts. You know, these are some fonts that is recommended to be used. These are not all inclusive, but these are some things that you can use. I like to use Arial Narrow. That's like one of the ones I like to use. But you know, there is a lot of different fonts you can use as long as the employer is able to read it. Then you want to keep the font size 10 to 12 point font. And then the section titles can be 14 to 16. And so again, we recommend that you use Word documents, Microsoft Word for easier editing and ATS capabilities. So those are just some basics. So your header section is the most important section of your resume, of a student resume. This must have the student first and last name, location only. In current resume writing, you no longer put your full address on your resume because you want to keep yourself protected from personal identified information. You only include the city and state and zip code, or you can only include the city and state. I mean, city, state, or you don't have to include the zip code. Some people I've seen where people just only include their city and state and not the zip code, but sometimes they only include their phone number and LinkedIn profile. So you definitely want to have a phone number. You definitely want to talk to the students about having a professional email address. A professional email address. This is so important because, believe it or not, employers do, they will possibly judge them based off of their email. We cannot have candygirl@gmail.com or, call me back at gmail.com, those type of things. I always tell students to stick to their first and last name. Now, as I mentioned, the LinkedIn or the portfolio link, you can link that on your resume at the top of your header section if they choose to. So you also want to talk to students about when to use professional emails and unprofessional emails. And I know last week we had 2 career coaches who did an outstanding job talking about professional emails. But you also want to tell students, if you want to use that candygirl@gmail.com, then you use that as a personal. You have 2 different emails. Use it as personal business. But if you are applying for scholarships and job applications, use your professional email. So these are just some ways that students can, you can show the difference of why they need to when to use a professional email versus unprofessional emails. So the header section, it should look something similar to this. Jane Doe. Another common practice in resume writing is putting their title. So like, for an example, a student have a CNA, CDL, so they can do their name, comma, CDL, CNA. They have their address, they have their location, city, state. They don't include their zip code, phone number, and professional email. Jane.doe@gmail.com. That's professional. So that's how it should look. Now, common resume sections. These are not all inclusive, but these are some of the most common ones. You have your professional summary of qualifications, area of expertise or skill section. You have work or professional experience, accomplishments, and education or training. What are some additional resume sections a student can include on their resume? You can drop it in the chat. Volunteer service, yes. Volunteer service. Certifications, yes. Organizations, professional organizations, yes, that's another one. So yes, so even when you are working with students who may have limited work experience, who may not have any work experience, then this is where you kind of go digging to see, before they dropped out of high school, what type of clubs were they in? You can add those, include those. Are they volunteering? Those type of things. So these are just some additional resume sections, not all inclusive, that you can include. One of the things I want to point out is relevant coursework. This is something a student can add on their resume. If they're currently in your class, this is what they can add, on their resume. So, or in-house seminars or presentations. Maybe you have the student get up and do a presentation. They can add that on their resume. So we have to be creative when we are working with our students when doing resume writing. So the career or professional summary section, basically this is a brief 2 to 4 sentence introduction at the top of a student resume, highlighting their skills, experiences, and career goals tailored to the job that they're applying for. Now, sometimes I like to go a little overboard, but if you're working with a student who may not have a lot of work experience, then you can stick to the 2 to 4 sentences. So let me show you how you can easily do this. And I know a lot of career coaches say they have a hard time writing the professional summary. So this is what you can do. You think about the student, their title. We know that I'm going to stick with customer service. We know that the student's been in some type of, working in retail, working at McDonald's, working at Subway. That's all dealing with customer service. So example, customer service representative. We can say that, or we can say customer service professional or customer service oriented professional, however you choose to word it. Then you ask the student the years of experience. So we can say the student has 4, 5, 6 years of experience. Then we identify some of those key skills that the student already possesses, but also when the student, based on the job description, we can include some of those skills as well. So example, strong in communication, problem solving, and customer relations. And then the career goals or what you offer is seeking to leverage and contribute to a team-oriented environment. So we're going to put this all together. Bam, you have your professional summary. Customer service representative with 4 years of experience in strong communication, problem solving, and customer relations, seeking to leverage and contribute to a team-oriented environment. That's it. It doesn't have to be long, because sometimes we know our students may not have a lot of work experience, so we don't have to be as detailed as someone like you and I when we are, revamping our resume. So then you want to talk to the students about hard and soft skills. What are hard skills? Can anyone tell me what those hard skills are? You can unmute yourselves, or I'm not able to see the chat unless it pops up.
Well, customer service, obviously, maybe like a POS system or telephone, like a big company telephone system, she would probably be able to operate.
Yes.
And any maybe kind of database where she had to input information.
Yes, thank you, Adrian. Yes. So those are like Microsoft Office, internet application, typing, Google Suite, those type of things, Zoom. So we all know what soft skills are, but maybe our students don't know. So this is where you have the opportunity to explain to them that this is time management, collaboration. These are not all inclusive. These are just some adaptability, those which translates into transferable skills or employability skills. So you want to ensure that you not only build your professional summary, but also I recommend that you, on the skill section part, that you include at least 6 good skills that students have, that they possess, but also include some of those skills from the job description in there. So when it goes through the applicant tracking system, they are able to read it. So this is just an example. If you have the wage resume template, this is all this is. As you can see, we have the name, we have the professional summary, we have the skill session. It's starting to develop. It's in a Word document. So next, we're going to talk about work experience section and education and training section. So with this, you're going to, when you're working with the student, if a student has limited work experience, as I already mentioned, you want to define the term experience for adult learner. This means, ask them to write down all their full, part-time jobs, self-employment, volunteer work, gig work, school or community projects, internships or apprenticeships. Have them to write all that down. So when it's time to build a resume, they can list that as experience as well. So this is how we can kind of just have those conversations, because sometimes our students may think experience is just full and part-time jobs. No, experience can be public speaking. They go around and volunteer at their child's school, clean, working in the cafeteria, monitoring the students during lunch, those type of things. We have to find creative ways to really fill the student resume. So with the work experience section, here are some strategies. So remember, we had the steps to writing a professional summary. So this is what you want to do. Some of the things you want to include in this part of the work experience section is the job title, dates of employment, company name, city, and state. You want to use bullet points. I've seen resumes where it's a big old paragraph. Well, keep in mind, employers have 6 to 10 seconds to skim through your resume. They don't have time to read a paragraph. So you want to make sure that you are using action verbs, you are using bullet points for your resume, and it's concise, but while providing enough information for that employee to read. You do not want to include a photo of yourself. You do not want to have fraud or exaggeration, because employers do work verification. They do check. So you don't want to have a job on there that you have never worked just so you can get the job. And then do not use personal pronouns. I, me, she, that do not belong on the resume. So you want to make sure you keep it this layout. Always use bullet points. So one of the things we also have seen in some of the wage resumes that has been submitted is weaker bullet point statements. So we've seen shift boxes, rank customers, we've seen managed department. So how can we write stronger statements? Well, we want to use action verbs, but we also want to make sure we get a gist of what the student has actually done. The job description is just basic job, basic description. But once they get in the job, they doing something, maybe a little different from what they were hired for. So they package and ship 30 boxes daily, process customers' transaction, cash, debit, and credit card with 100% accuracy, staffed and managed 5-person department. This is what we want to see. We do not want to see bullet points with just one word. Sometimes we see the company name, job title, and nothing else listed. So we want to ensure that we are taking the time to really craft the student resume. And if you if you don't have any idea of what that student has done in their job, Google it. Use ChatGPT to get you something to put on that student resume. And then you want to ask the student, is this something that you have done? Then you also want to ensure that the student is able to understand the verbiage on the resume. We do not want to use big words, because the student, once they get in the interview, they may not can explain it. So you definitely want to keep it at their level. So again, when you are crafting this, you start off with an action verb, take task or responsibility, result, and impact. If you can keep this in mind, you can craft a great bullet point. And in the CSP class or my resume training that I normally do, we go really into detail about this. So here's an example. The cashier. I like to put the job title at the top because that's what I want the employers to focus on. The city, the name of the company, the city and state, and then you list the month and the year start date. And if the student has ended working at their job, then you list the month and year end date. We no longer put it in numerical format. You list it out. So this is how it would kind of look like, and then you can use bold sparingly. You can bold some things sparingly. You want to ensure that the things that you feel that's most important, you want to bold those things. You don't want to overdo it, but you can bold sparingly to be able to pull that information out for the employer. And then for the education and training section, you want to start off with the student most recent degree. Or if the student is currently enrolled in your adult education program, then you want to list, this is how you list it. You list, I'm going to use Arkansas Baptist. I will list Arkansas Baptist Adult Education Program, comma, Little Rock, Arkansas. Then I will hit enter and I will put Arkansas High School Diploma. Do not put GED. GED is just the name of the class. But when they actually pass the GED test, GED is just the name of the test. But when they actually pass the GED test in all 4 sections, it's actually going to say Arkansas High School Diploma. So we have to get in the practice of putting Arkansas High School Diploma. And if the student hasn't finished it, you can put the anticipated date that they're going to get it. So anticipated date, May of 2026. That lets the employer know that the student is currently working on that, is in progress. So if a student has already earned an Arkansas High School Diploma and they have earned their wage level 2, then you want to list the highest, CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant, then you want to list that first. You want to list where they got it from under the wage, and I'll show you on the next screen. We have verbiage to tell employers what the wage is. So use that. All you have to do is copy and paste. If you feel like you don't want to use the wage templates that we provided, copy and paste the verbiage. So employers will know what wage level 1 and what wage level 2 is. So you want to include, and I know sometimes students may not want to include the wage level 1, wage level 2 on their resume, but in order to receive the scholarship and those type of things, for us, when you submit it, it must be on there. But then after, when they start applying for jobs, they can take it off if they choose to. You want to list the name of the school, college, or university. Same thing. If the student has an associate's degree, that will be listed first. You do not have to include their high school diploma because we know that they have to have a high school diploma in order to get an associate's degree. And then the graduation date. But if a student hasn't completed their associate's degree, whoever, you want to include the year obtained or expected date. But you only include those dates once the student has completed that. If the student has already earned their degree, then you do not list the date. You only list that date if it has been within the last 3 years. So for me, for an example, I got my bachelor's degree back in 2010. I would not list that date. I will just list University of Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, Bachelor's of Science in Speech Pathology. And then I would not list my date because it's going to tell them my age and how long I've been out of school, because you want to protect yourself from age discrimination. So you do not have to list the date of your degree if you have already completed your degree, unless it is within the last 3 years. And so this is how it looks. So for an example, we have Arkansas Baptist College Adult Education Program, Little Rock, Arkansas, Arkansas high school diploma, May 2023. Of course, I just said that, but I just snipped it because for this webinar, but we wouldn't list that date at the time when I did the resume templates. It was during that time. So we wouldn't list the date on there. We would just drop that date off. And then we will list their wage level 1 and wage level 2. We will drop those dates off if it's been, more than 3 years. We will, if they have recently attained it, then you will include that date. You will do June 2025, June 2024, or so that's how you would do it. And then as you can see with the wage level 2, it has the certified nursing assistant, December 2022, and it gives the employer a snapshot of what they have attained while they were at your local adult education program. So these are just the basics. A lot of our students will not have a lot of resume sections. Most of the common resume sections that they will have is their header section, professional summary. The header section is the most important thing because the employer will contact them based on either on their phone number they have listed or their email. And the professional summary, which is 2 to 4 sentences that's brief, that's tailoring to the job that they're applying for. They have their core skills. You can say core skills, you can say area of expertise, or you can say skills. I like to change it up a little bit. And you list at least 6 good skills that the student has. You don't want to overdo it. At least 6 good skills that the student possess, but also some of the skills that the student has identified in the job description. You want to list work experience. Most of our students have work experience. Some of them do not have professional experience, such as working, like in an environment like adult education or working in an office setting for a law firm. Most of our students have work experience, working at McDonald's, those type of places. So that will be considered as work experience. And then you would do their education or training listed on their resume. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Typically, most students have 5 different sections unless they have key achievements. If they want to put, different awards and different achievements, then we can create another section on the resume. And so it's very important. One thing that I do want to highlight here is it's very important that we list the most important thing at the top of the resume. As you can see, we have the education and training at the bottom. But if a student says that they want to list their education and training at the top, then we will list it at the top. But if a student does not have their high school diploma, I like to list their education at the bottom because I would like for the employer to focus on their skill set and not the education, that saying, letting them know that they do not have their Arkansas high school diploma. And so you want to keep your resume OCC, meaning organized, clean, and consistent. You want to ensure that it has the same font. It has all the same bullet point. It is free of grammatical errors. All those things. If you have the dates in bold, then all the dates should be in bold. If you have the title bold, then all the titles should be bold. So you want to ensure that it has that consistency when an employer looks at the student resume. And then before you submit your resume or before a student submit their resume and you working with the student, you want to have someone in your program other than you, because you cannot always be subjective to mistakes. You want to have them to review, their resume, verify the dates and phone numbers, make sure it's accurate, check for consistency and verb tense and parallel structure and bullet lists. You want to read the document backwards to make sure that it makes sense. And then again, you want to ask a trusted colleague or friend to review the documents. Maybe you didn't catch all the mistakes and they can review it for you. And so this is just the basic foundation of resume writing. We will offer a just as involved resume training in January. So in that training, we will really just focus on crafting the functional resume. But right now, I would ask, are there any questions? Any questions? So I just want to kind of gauge from you guys, how comfortable are you guiding students to create or update their resumes? Very comfortable, somewhat comfortable, not comfortable? What do you need, more help with? Please feel free to schedule a one-to-one with me. I would be more than happy to, work with you, via Zoom, and we can share screens and we can, work through it. You can always schedule an appointment with me if you really need more assistance with resume writing. And it's not just for career coaches, because we do have teachers who are actually helping the student to craft their resume. And one of the things I do want to highlight is work with your career coach. If you are a teacher and you're not really strong in resume writing and your career coach is, work with your teacher. Your career coach. You do not have to craft every student resume in your center. You put the student to work. This is their resume. We want to promote self-sufficiency. So in the event that you're not there, they know how to go in and do a resume, update their resume. They know how to go in and save it and upload it. These are the skills that we should be teaching our students. The work shouldn't be all on us. It should be a collaborative effort with your student to help them craft a resume. So let's see. A, very comfortable. Okay, somewhat comfortable. B, not. Let's see, do we have any nots? Somewhat comfortable, not. Let's see, we got a lot of B's, A's. Okay, we got a lot of A's. Okay. Like I said, we can never get enough of resume writing. Never. I'm always learning. I'm always learning. I'm going to the next resume session I do will be a resume section webinar on Grow with Google tips. I actually took a resume training through my sorority who offered this training with Grow with Google. And I say, you know what? I'm gonna come back and share it with my career coaches. And so I'm always, my coworkers always call me nosy, but I'm a good nosy because I like to go and get information and bring it back. All right. So if there's no questions, I will send out a copy of this PowerPoint to you guys so you can kind of have it as a foundation. And I will send out the session ID if you are interested in attending the Justice Involved resume writing class. You can sign up. It's going to be January the 14th if the weather permits, but I will send this out to you. And I'll just stay on. And I thank you guys so much. Thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you, Ms. Latasha.
You're welcome. Thank you. So the next career coach meeting is November the 19th.